Hi, this is Ashley Victoria Robinson from the Popverse coming to you live from San Diego Comic-Con with the man who has defined Superman arguably more than anybody else, Mr. Dan Jurgens. Welcome.
Hi, Ashley.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I am doing so well, and I have to ask you, as the Superman expert, what does it feel like to have the death of Superman bouncing back into your life after so many decades?
After 30 years, it's actually a lot of fun because we have such a fun project to go along with it.
Mm-hmm. How many of the band is getting back together?
The entire band is getting back together for the most part. So we have this very special project, and I'm doing a story that I'm writing and drawing, and Brett Breeding is inking, and it's our first DC work together in a long, long time. So, and it's looking great. It's always fun to work with Brett. Then we have Jerry Ordway and Tom Grummett getting together to do a story as they were working on Adventures of Superman back at that time. We have Roger Stern and Butch Geist getting back together to do a story. They were doing Action Comics back then. And we have Louise Simonson and John Bogdanov, who are back doing a story as they were on Man of Steel back in those days. So we're back again and running strong.
And how did this project come about? Did you pitch this? Is this your doing? Are you here to break our hearts again?
Sort of, yeah. I did mention to a couple of people at DC that, it's 30 years since we did the Death of Superman, and we're all still around, and we can all still work. And it might be fun just to do something that looks back on that. And so I mentioned something that could be, I think, a very special format and a very special type of project to do that would get the band back together again and give everybody a chance to make another statement about what happened during those days.
And now you've given Superman a son and an entirely new life than he had 30 years ago when he initially met his demise. So how much is that going to affect what happens in this event?
This definitely gets us into the story. And part of it is because I am certainly aware that after 30 years, not everybody who picks this up was necessarily there the first time around. And so what we wanted to do was create a project that would touch on what happened 30 years ago, and also see it through someone's eyes now. And who would be better than young 9-year-old Jon Kent? And what basically happens is, Jon is at school one day, and this is shortly after they moved back to Metropolis, and someone is there wearing a black armband with the S-shield on it.
Like we all know from the famous cover.
Like we all know, and really it is someone who's there to talk about one of the most famous days in the history of Metropolis, which was the day that Superman died, and how the world reacted. And Jon is just sitting there in school going, what? Because Lois and Clark did not tell him. And so later he's walking home from school with Lois, and Lois says, well, how was school today, son? And he says, bad. And that way he can start to explain, because you never told me that Dad died. And then that gets us into the story. And we get Lois's memories of what happened then and how it affected her as a person and how traumatic it was for her, because we really didn't ever have a chance to get into a lot of that. And at the same time, a new threat emerges in Metropolis, and we get to see that both in terms of the past and the present through Jon's eyes, which I think is a very special way to experience a Superman story.
Does this new threat have something to do with somebody named Doom?
He does have something to do with Doomsday. And I wouldn't quite say he's a relative of Doomsday's, but he's related to Doomsday in a way. And his name is Doombreaker, and it's actually Jon who gives him that name. Because I think the idea, again, of a 9-year-old kid naming a supervillain is just awesome. The first time around, it was Booster Gold who named Superman's foe Doomsday. So this time, why not make it Jon?
Fun. And Reign of the Superman is also a huge part of the Death of Superman mythology. Are we going to get some more additions or some more reigners in this event?
You get a little bit of a look at what was happening in those days. Weezy Simonson and John Bogdanov have done a very special story with John Henry Irons. And John Henry Irons was on the scene. As we know, we have seen a little snippet of that when Superman died. So we get to see a little more of that and how Superman's sacrifice was such a strong aspect of what inspired him to become Steel. So we get a little more depth in that story. And I think that's what's nice about the stories that the original creators are doing, which is we get a little bit stronger look at what happened in those days and how it played out later.
So you've told us a lot about the story, but I want to know about your process creating the story. What was it like to step back into the writer/artist role in this longer form?
It was a lot of fun. And one of the things I did say is, look, a strong aspect of what happened back then was we came up with the storytelling device of, as we went through the 4 books that concluded with Superman 75, of 4 panels a page to 3 to 2 to 1. And it made the pace of the story quicken. It felt like everything was happening faster and faster. It's like being in a theater as the music gets louder. And so we're doing that here. Brett and I are doing a 41-page story that starts out with 4 panels, then 3, then 2, then 1. And it's just another way of reminding people of the fun of what happened back then.
The fun amidst the tragedy.
the fun amidst the tragedy. And what's so odd here is, and I was just mentioning this to Brett a couple of days ago, where I said, I didn't anticipate that as we set out to do this, that I would be getting in touch with some of these old feelings myself. And the same thing is true of him, where all of a sudden, so you're drawing these bony protrusions on Doomsday, which take forever to draw and forever to ink. And it's like all of a sudden, it kind of comes back, and it made me remember some of the things that I was experiencing back then, which I think we had kind of forgotten about. So it's been a lot of fun. And I think, again, this is what we want readers to experience as well. So the fact that we could do that and kind of start to go through this process of, I can't remember how long it had been since I had drawn the Daily Planet building with the special ironworks on it with the little squigglies, the Art Deco effects and everything. So it was fun to get back to do that again. And this is what we want readers to experience, and the fun of it all. And for readers who weren't there, maybe we can tell them a little bit about what it was like.
So for our people who have read the original event, who are coming to this with all of the emotional baggage, are there any Easter eggs or little moments that you want them to look out for in the new book?
I would say that's a safe bet.
That's a great answer.
This is all about what was happening then. And in a way, the whole thing is an Easter egg, but I think there will be other little fun bits that happen along those same times. And really, all of this springs from something that happened. One key panel, and there was only 1 panel per page, in Superman 75. So if people want to start playing that game right now to guess what that might be, it all springs from that 1 panel, 1 page in Superman 75.
You heard it. I want to see all the comments. I want to see all of the screenshots of which panel we think it is. And for everybody who's watching who wants to create their own comics, whether it's Superman or something independent, you've worked on more pages as an artist and letterer than probably anyone else. What is your advice to up-and-coming creators?
Find out what it is that you want to say and stay with it. And whatever is your passion, stay with it and find a way to get it on the page.
And then lastly, because here at the Popverse we celebrate the best of TV, movies, and comics, what are you geeking out about that you're not working on?
What am I geeking? Well, what I've had so much fun, and I know you're going to relate to this, but this is the God's honest truth. It's been fun to see all the Star Trek stuff.
Yes!
And to see the wrap and everything on the Marriott, and just to see Star Trek become such a strong presence again. And Strange New Worlds for me has been the funnest thing on TV in a long time.
You're the second person who said that today, and I have to say
Really?
justice for Hammer.
All right, okay.
And Dan, where can people find you online? When can we expect more heart-crushing stories in the Death of Superman?
You can find me online on Twitter. I'm the Dan Jurgens, and you can also go to my website, danjurgens.com.
Yay! Thank you so much for joining us here at San Diego Comic-Con.
All right, my pleasure.